Remembering Charleston, reflecting on the tragedy of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church shooting. On the evening of June 17, 2015, the historic Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, became the site of a tragedy that shook the nation to its core. The Charleston church shooting, carried out by a lone gunman, left 9 innocent people dead and sparked a wave of grief, anger, and introspection across the United States. The Emmanuel AME Church holds a significant place in American history. Founded in 1816, it stands as one of the oldest Black churches in the South and has long been a symbol of resilience and hope within the African American community. However, on that fateful summer night, the church's sanctuary was transformed into a scene of horror and devastation. The perpetrator, a young white supremacist named Dylan Roof, entered the church armed with a .445 caliber handgun and a heart filled with hate. He sat through a Bible study session for nearly an hour before opening fire on the unsuspecting congregation. His victims, including the church's pastor, Reverend Clementa Pinckney, were targeted simply because of the color of their skin. The brutality of the attack sent shockwaves throughout the country, reigniting conversations about race, gun violence, and the enduring legacy of racism in America. It was a stark reminder that despite progress made in civil rights and social justice, the scourge of hatred and bigotry still lurked in the shadows. In the aftermath of the shooting, communities across the nation came together in mourning and solidarity. Vigils were held, prayers were offered, and calls for action echoed from coast to coast. President Barack Obama, speaking at Reverend Pinckney's funeral, delivered a powerful eulogy that captured the pain and resilience of the moment. He called for an end to the cycle of violence and urged Americans to confront the deep-rooted issues of racism and inequality. The Charleston church shooting also reignited debates about gun control in the United States. Roof, who had a history of racist beliefs and had posed with the Confederate flag in photos, was able to purchase the firearm used in the attack with relative ease. His actions raised questions about the accessibility of guns and the need for stricter regulations to prevent similar tragedies in the future. But amidst the sorrow and outrage, there were moments of grace and forgiveness that emerged from the darkness. In an extraordinary display of faith and compassion, family members of the victims offered words of forgiveness to Roof during his bond hearing. Their act of grace, born out of a deep Christian faith, stunned the nation and served as a powerful example of the power of love to overcome hate. The aftermath of the Charleston church shooting also prompted a renewed examination of Confederate symbols and memorials across the South. In the weeks following the attack, calls to remove Confederate flags and monuments gained momentum as many began to see these symbols not as relics of history, but as emblems of racism and oppression. In December 2016, Dylan Roof was convicted on 33 federal charges, including hate crimes resulting in death. He was sentenced to death, becoming the first person in the United States to receive the federal death penalty for a hate crime. 5 years have passed since that tragic night in Charleston, but the memory of the Emmanuel AME Church shooting continues to resonate deeply within the American conscience. It serves as a reminder of the enduring struggle for justice and equality in our society, and a call to action to confront the forces of hatred and division wherever they may arise. As we reflect on the events of June 17, 2015, let us honor the memory of the victims by renewing our commitment to building a more just, inclusive, and compassionate society. May their lives inspire us to work towards a future where such senseless acts of violence are but a distant memory, and where the bonds of love and understanding unite us as one people, indivisible. Recalling the Munich Massacre, a tragic day in Olympic history. The Munich Massacre stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the enduring threat of terrorism on the international stage. It was the early hours of September 5, 1972, when the tranquility of the Olympic Village in Munich, Germany, was shattered by the chilling sounds of gunfire and explosions. A group of 8 Palestinian terrorists affiliated with the militant organization Black September launched a brazen assault on the quarters housing the Israeli Olympic team. The meticulously planned attack unfolded swiftly as the terrorists, armed with guns and grenades, scaled the fences of the Olympic Village and stormed into the apartments where the Israeli athletes were sleeping. In the chaos that ensued, 2 members of the Israeli team managed to evade capture, while 9 others were taken hostage by the terrorists. The terrorists, led by Lutif Afif, who was also known as Issa, immediately made their demands known to the German authorities and the world. They demanded the release of over 200 Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, as well as safe passage out of Germany. Failure to meet their demands, they threatened, would result in the deaths of the hostages. What followed was a tense standoff that captivated audiences around the globe. Negotiations between the terrorists and German officials were conducted under intense scrutiny, with the fate of the hostages hanging in the balance. The world watched in horror as the events unfolded, hoping for a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Despite efforts to negotiate a peaceful resolution, the situation took a tragic turn in the early hours of September 6th. German authorities, believing they had a plan to rescue the hostages, initiated a botched rescue attempt at a nearby airport. The operation, known as Operation Sunshine, quickly descended into chaos and bloodshed. In the ensuing gun battle, all 9 Israeli hostages were killed, along with 5 terrorists and 1 German police officer. The world looked on in shock and disbelief as the full extent of the tragedy became clear. The Munich massacre had claimed the lives of 11 innocent athletes and shattered the illusion of security at the Olympic Games. The aftermath of the Munich massacre sent shockwaves throughout the world, prompting an outpouring of grief, anger, and condemnation. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, was forced to confront the grim reality of terrorism on the Olympic stage and vowed to take steps to enhance security measures at future games. The Munich massacre also had profound political implications, exacerbating tensions in the Middle East and underscoring the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It served as a stark reminder of the human cost of extremism and the urgent need for meaningful dialogue and diplomacy to address the root causes of violence and hatred. As the world grappled with the aftermath of the Munich massacre, the Olympic Games continued, albeit under a cloud of sorrow and mourning. The memory of the 11 Israeli athletes who lost their lives in Munich serves as a solemn reminder of the price of peace and the ongoing struggle against terrorism in all its forms. 5 decades have passed since that tragic day in Munich, but the memory of the Munich massacre endures as a somber reminder of the enduring threat of terrorism and the importance of remaining vigilant in the pursuit of peace and security on the world stage. As we reflect on the events of September 5, 1972, let us honor the memory of the victims by reaffirming our commitment to building a world where such senseless acts of violence are consigned to the past. The Munich massacre of 1972 remains a defining moment in Olympic history, marking a tragic intersection of sports and terrorism. As we reflect on the events of that dark day, we are reminded of the fragility of peace and the ongoing struggle against extremism. Yet, amidst the sorrow and loss, the resilience of the human spirit endures. Let us honor the memory of the victims by reaffirming our commitment to building a world where the Olympic ideal of peace and unity prevails, and where the legacy of the Munich massacre serves as a solemn reminder of the need for vigilance, compassion, and solidarity.